Love you too. Hey, we are live. I was just professing my love for Anthony because today, Anthony, we're going to get real. We're going to be talking about mental health issues. What do you think about that?
I think it's important.
It is. Hey, everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. We got Anthony Melchiori right over there. And of course, I am Glenn Hausman. Anthony, so great to see you. I'm really looking forward to today's topic about talking about mental health and how we could take better care of ourselves. One of the things that sometimes we haven't been doing enough of during this crisis.
Where are you?
I am today. I'm coming at you from the Craddock Terry Hotel. It's a beautiful 44 boutique hotel in downtown Lynchburg, Virginia. I want to thank Jennifer Keenan, the front desk manager of the Craddock Terry Hotel, for being the first person to send in the background for us to use here on the show. Look how cool is that we're getting.
What's the deal with the shoe? What's the story behind the shoe?
That is because it used to be a shoe factory before it was repurposed into a hotel, and they've got a great shoe sculpture out front. And I love that we get to show off people's hotels from really engaged listeners. How awesome is that?
And they're not paying us, just so everybody knows. This is not a paid thing. This is doing it. We just want to showcase beautiful hotels.
Yeah, you know what? I got to get back to doing my Instagram account. Maybe I'll put them out on the Instagram account as well. So I'll have a little double coverage on
and maybe at the end of the show, our wonderful producer, David, can throw a couple pictures of the inside of the hotel.
Hey, thanks, Maritza. I just recently got this shirt. As a matter of fact, I got to go buy some more for fall season. So if anybody got some recommendations for some good outerwear, shirt wear for me, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, because that's everybody's thinking about your shirt wear. I know I am.
I know everyone's obsessed. We can't get enough of what Glenn is wearing today. But I can't get enough of great hotels. So please send in those pictures.
Yes. We were talking to the doctor for a minute before we bring her on. We were talking in the green room, and her specialty is anxiety and stress. And I said, is there anybody walking the face of the earth that doesn't suffer from anxiety or stress? And she said, of course not, but there's different ways of handling it. So we're going to handle it, especially specifically to the hotel industry and kind of what people are dealing with. I think we'll talk about the doctor, but I think there's two types of people right now who dealing with stress. People that are staying home dealing with it, people going to work dealing with it. And I think I see my friends that are going to work that are dealing with it are actually handling it better than people staying home. Yeah,
well, staying home could be an exhausting thing. You get those fall walls climbing in on you tighter and tighter and tighter.
You got a shoe sticking out of your head?
Yeah. All right. Let's bring in Dr. Berman. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good idea.
Dr. Erin Berman. She works over at the National Institute of Mental Health, the lead federal agency for research on mental disorders. Dr. Berman, thank you so much for joining us today for what I think is a really, really important show.
What's up, Doc?
Nice to have you guys invite me, honestly. I think, like you said, it's really important, especially with everything going on, and that I don't think there's kind of an end in sight to this level of stress.
Doctor, before we get started on the important stuff, I want to know what that day was like when the DSM-5 came out. After decades of the DSM-4, what was it like making that big transition?
And it was like this much of a transition, right? They picked a few things, they changed some names. But yeah, it was not as exciting as I was hoping it to be.
So what is it? Tell me what the DSM.
DSM. It's Doctor. Why don't you explain it since you know
it's
all the
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's how we characterize diagnoses. So if you come to me and you're saying I'm having heart palpitations and I'm avoiding driving my car, and I guess you're afraid you're going to die when you have these feelings, then I would say, oh, you might be having a panic attack. It helps kind of put people into categories, but the idea is it's supposed to always change, and the 5 didn't change very much.
So tell everyone what you do on a daily basis, what your specialty is, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so my main area is anxiety disorders across the lifespan. And what I do at the National Institute of Mental Health is I'm part of a group that looks at the neuroscience behind how anxiety disorders develop. So what part of our brain is firing when we're anxious. So I do that on some end, and then I also treat the individuals that we see at the NIH. So, my main area is cognitive behavioral therapy and how to help people manage excessive anxiety.
So when was the moment and that you decided to study this? Was it when you were a younger girl, when you were in college? When did you decide?
That's a great question. I'll make it a very short story, although it's a bit longer. I was in school, an undergrad. I loved writing and characters, and I wanted to be an English major. They told me I wasn't so great at writing, multiple teachers. And then I figured I liked the idea of like being the characters and the people. And then I kind of transitioned to that. And I always liked, the science behind treating individuals. So pretty much because I wasn't a good writer, I found a real good niche here. So.
And when you were growing up, did you have like anxiety outside of the normal anxiety, or?
I don't know if it was outside, but I definitely can tell you in a funny way, the best treatment was to face your fears. And I was in the marching band in high school.
Hey, me too.
And if you're worried about people looking at you, which I didn't like when I was younger, I didn't like people with their eyes on me. You get over it pretty quickly. You wear a crazy hat and you play music and you learn that nothing really happens when people stare at you.
And like we were talking, I think it's really important. I've been a big advocate of nutrition and exercise. Yeah. And that's got me through, not only when I was shooting crazy hours and traveling all over the world, but now it's like every morning. I went last week 5 days without working out, and I was one day from really feeling anxious, and I had my friend come over and we worked out, and I felt much better. And but 5 days was a lot for me not to work out. And again, I'm not like people thinking it's like I'm not throwing a heavy weight or getting to the point of complete exhaustion or getting on my bike and sweating profusely. I'm just simply moving, and it helps me tremendously. And I think that has helped me with my anxiety or my stress levels throughout my life since I'm 9 years old. And I think that we're not talking enough about the nutrition part of it, the movement part of it. I saw my daughter, who's now on the volleyball team in college, that really helps alleviate a lot of stress for her.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really common, really is.
Yeah, for sure. So Ross Yeager, and this is like really in the spirit of our show. He had a huge anxiety attack yesterday, and that's something I think that we could all, sympathize with. When things are going bad, even when things are going well, for some reason at this particular time, it seems to be happening to us more frequently. So I guess a really great place to put it is, could you explain what an anxiety attack actually is? Because a lot of people might feel like it's a heart attack. And is there a way to just kind of take a deep breath and calm it down before it gets out of control? And this will help me personally in my life with my family as well, for the record.
Yeah, so anxiety attacks are one of the primary reasons people even go to the ER, honestly. So You're not alone. People think they might be dying, sweating. What's important, first of all, is an anxiety attack is just really the amygdala, the part of our brain that's kind of does our fight, flight, or freeze, kind of response. It misfires. Well, sometimes it misfires and sometimes it's just attached to something. So a stressor can happen. You can have a panic attack, but also it can simply be out of the blue, and those can be very, very scary. So you could, if you notice it coming on, if you have a stressor, breathing through it is terribly important. The other thing is noting that most people have a panic attack, or a few of them at some point in their life. They're not fun. I'm not saying you have to enjoy it, but the idea is for you to kind of realize, okay, this is something that's happening. It's a misfiring. I want to breathe through it. The quicker you kind of surrender and go with the wave of it, the quicker it can end. If you fight it, I don't want to have this. This is horrible. I don't want to hear this, feel this. Then it really will escalate and continue for a longer period of time.
What's the breathing exercise you do? I've seen several different versions. What's the breathing exercise you tell people?
Yeah, I mean, I just do this simple one where, in through your nose to the count of 5 and out through your mouth for 3.
Okay.
And make sure you're counting and saving, very focused on it. I do think it's really important for the individual to pick whichever one works best for them. Because also some people, when they try to do the breathing in the middle of a panic attack, will make it worse. So
really?
Good strategy is called grounding. Some people don't like to breathe. Like they're like, I don't like that yoga stuff. Like it's just, that's fine. Then you want to ground yourself. So use your senses. That's what grounding is. So get a cold glass of water, grab an ice cube, go take a hot shower. So that your senses, suck on a piece of really mint candy, whatever it might be that can bring you back into your body.
Yeah, I've never had a panic attack until last year. And what happened was I had heart surgery 3 years ago.
Oh.
And I had two chambers of my heart were out of whack. And so I went in, it was fine. I was on medicine, still on the medicine, and I was getting chest pains. And I've never really had chest pains even before my heart attack. It was just something that was asymptomatic that the doctor found. And I started feeling chest pains, and I went online. I'm looking at all the things, and I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm like, am I having a stroke? He said I would have a stroke before I have a heart attack. Am I having a stroke? What's going on? It's about 3:00 in the morning. And I had a panic attack without knowing it. I called my neighbor. They drove me to the ER, and he said the doctor said I was fine. But it was what fed into it was that I didn't know if it was a heart attack. So yes, I had some kind of pain. It was probably I was working out and I probably just heard something. I had nothing to do with a heart attack or stroke or even anxiety, because I wasn't having anxiety at the time. It was just pain. And what I did was I kept on going over and over and over. Should I go? Should I go? Because I remember the doctor saying, if you feel weird, just go to the ER. Don't try to measure it. And being a control freak, I was measuring it and trying to control it. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, crap. And I didn't have a panic attack where I've seen people have panic attacks where I was out of breath or I was out of my mind. But I think I was breathing a little heavier, and I really think that I was having a heart attack at some point. And I went, everything was fine. I came home, everything was fine. It's the only time I had a panic attack. And this is another interesting thing that I experienced. I was embarrassed by it. It's the first time I'm talking about it. I was embarrassed by it. And because I'm a strong person, because I'm strong-willed, because I'm a control freak, I was embarrassed that I woke up my neighbor to drive me to the hospital because I had a panic attack. Luckily, I have a neighbor that doesn't sleep. She was on her couch. She drove me. She was already dressed. She was literally in my house in like literally 30 seconds. And I was at Lenox Hill Hospital in like 16 seconds. I wanted to go to an urgent care, and she goes, "Where's your doctor located?" I said, "Lenox Hill." So we went up to Lenox Hill, and so everybody has to have great neighbors, and she's a dear friend of ours. But anyway, my point being is, I talked myself into a panic attack, and then I was embarrassed that I had one. Is that common?
Yeah, it actually brings something really important. It's that meta level of psychology that can make it worse, right? Do you know? Because you're feeling bad about already feeling bad, and you couldn't control that. That was just your body misfiring, maybe a little bit of sensitivity. So yeah, that's super common and really important to address.
And what is the effect of a glass of wine when you have an anxiety attack?
And while we're at it, what's the effect of 4 glasses of wine?
There's no science. We don't study that. So I'll have to leave that one.
But right now, what are the numbers? We're numbers people. Give us, like, what are you seeing? I know suicide is up. I know depression is up. Anxiety. I don't know a person that's not suffering from some type of anxiety. I mean, even last night's theatrics or what happened, that's all over the newspaper. That gave people around that I know anxiety. Like, how are you dealing? Like, give us simple things to deal with that are not where we have to go to the hospital. We need to take medication. What are simple everyday things we can do?
So, I always say you got to go back to the basics, which is incredibly hard to do for many of us because we have new routines, but you start really with your routine. Okay. So basics are you eating at a regular time? Because honestly, a lot of my patients are like, oh, they've been so stressed all morning. They didn't eat till 3:00. And then, that messes with everything. Right. So are you eating regularly? How's your sleep? Everyone's saying their sleep is kind of messed up, so try and get on a better sleep cycle, whatever that is for you. So the one thing I always say is it has to fit with you and your job. So it doesn't have to be, you have to be in bed at 10, and up at 6, it's whatever, but you need that kind of routine, whatever the routine is in your sleep. And then obviously, like you mentioned, exercise is terribly helpful and it's cheaper than therapy. So,
and I will tell you that, again, as a person that sleeps like I'm not going to wake up. I have had sleeping problems in the last month, and I'm up to 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Thank God the last 3 nights I've been sleeping. My eye is not because I'm tired. Is it this eye? Right? No, it's
other one.
Yeah. It's because I had something in my eye. I have to go back to the doctor today. But anyway, so I never really slept a lot. I've only slept 4 or 5 hours my whole life. But when I slept, I really, really deeply. And now I'm sleeping 8-9 hours, and I'm doing better. But yeah, I've had. It's another thing. I was kind of like, really, me? Like I don't like. not sleep, and it's messing me up. So I can imagine if it's messing someone up that's had a pattern of control, had a pattern of kind of handled his anxiety, his stress. I would imagine it's pretty rampant. So as far as numbers, is depression, suicide, are those numbers up?
Yes, it is, unfortunately. And we can know that it's up because, you can look at the levels, in January and December, where some of the national hotlines were obviously always taking stock of how many people were calling. There was an increase in April. And, I think a study recently came out that it looks like for adults, about, 5 to 7% of workers were experiencing mental health issues prior to this. Now you see adults, the rate is about more like 27, 25%.
Wow.
So 1 in a quarter are experiencing depression, anxiety, increased issues of suicide, thoughts about it, which is very important to talk to someone if you're having those thoughts, or there will be some resources about just text lines. Again, I want to make sure people understand that there's many ways you can communicate your feelings that are private, but talking about them is important.
And I think there's a person that goes to work and is dealing with the stress of having to work around this, obviously pandemic. But then it's the person that's staying home, that's working from home and has all the other responsibilities of child rearing and all that, the kids working from home, and also that person not getting a paycheck,
Right.
the entrepreneur.
Are you trying to help producer David here now?
What's that?
It sounds like producer David's life right now.
No, the stress of not having a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I just said something recently to someone that is getting a paycheck. They work for the government and they're getting a paycheck. And it's like, you've really got to realize that the person that's at home with their children, that's not getting a paycheck, that's afraid they can't put milk on the table, that is a level of stress that a lot of people can't bear. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we were talking about that sleep element. I'm so exhausted at the end of the day, doctor, that I pass out. I lie down, I'm out. But I'm up after 3 hours, 4 hours, and then I wind up being up almost every hour or every 2 hours or something like that. I don't have a lot of necessary noise going on in my head, but I do wake up frequently. If for people are having trouble falling back to sleep or falling asleep initially, what are some things we could do to try to calm our head and not let those anxious thoughts control us, and we can have a little bit more control over that?
Mm-hmm. So if it's the thoughts that are bothering you in general, I think it's you make a good point. We want to see what is it that's really bothering you. So if your mind is really racing, obviously meditation is great. It's very helpful. There's a lot of apps out there that you can use that can help with guided meditation. As I have with many of my anxious patients, their minds are going too fast at some point that doing that is just frustrating. So find a calm podcast, a boring podcast in terms of science podcasts, whatever it might be that can take your mind, you take yourself out of your mind. Music is fantastic, obviously. And then deep breathing before you're going to bed. The other big thing that a lot of people, and we could go into a whole topic on sleep hygiene, is watch out when you use your technology. We're all on our phones all the time. There's no boundaries now that we're home a lot. So using it in your bed is kind of one of the worst things you can do, because it can kind of condition your body to think you should be hanging out, texting, relaxing, and awake in your bed when really you want it as much as you can away from your bed.
Yeah, one of the smartest things we did was get rid of our television in our room years ago. And that's been very helpful, because the bedroom should be for sleeping. It should be for relaxing, not for adding more stimulus to your life. I like your idea about podcasts. I listen to podcasts every night. For all of you out there who want to listen to an audio version of this, be sure to check out No Vacancy Live and then checking in with Anthony and Glenn Feeds to get your daily dose there.
What's
Anthony,
your podcast that you listen to, Glenn? What's your go-to podcast? Mine's
I listen to a lot of different things. I like the stuff on the Stuff networks, how stuff works, stuff they don't want you to know, all of those kinds of things. I love science podcasts, like you were saying. I love things where I could learn and not worry about falling asleep and then kind of pick it up the next day.
But to your point, Doc, I was bringing my phone into the bed and I was, TikTok and social media. I stopped doing that. I'm sleeping better. But it's, our industry, we are now at 30% unemployment in our industry. The unemployment in the United States is now, I think, 8%, a little less than 8%. As the winter as the winter comes, especially on the East Coast, I think you're going to see the 30% unemployment go even higher because we were seeing some pretty great numbers of people going to beaches and using hotels. So those people that are coming home, that are dealing with COVID every day, that are dealing with all the stresses of life every day. I know we've kind of given some really good advice here, simple things, whether it be breathing, whether it be put your phone down. I mean, what other things could you impart to our audience?
So I think it's important, obviously to also watch your thinking, right? And see how, it might be something that, again, this is a tough time, right? And so it's important to make sure that your thoughts are realistic and maybe not catastrophic. It may feel like it's catastrophic and it may feel like things may never change. But that's not the reality. Life does change. Now, that also means, though, then you have to learn to tolerate kind of how hard things are right now. And then I think the other big thing besides checking thoughts is problem solving. Are there people out there that can help you or give you a little break if you're home with the kids all the time?
Yep.
What resources are out there through your industry, through the hotels, through the businesses? Are there mental health resources that are out there or are being offered?
Now, there's people that I know, friends of mine, that have a problem and they literally go to zero. They're like, they just everything, and no matter what you say to them, they can make it worse. I actually grew up with someone around me that was like that. They just made it worse and worse and worse, and you can't say anything. But as soon as they kind of get to their bottom, and I mean in that instant, I don't mean suicidal or anything like that, but in that instance where they've exhausted themselves, you just let them exhaust themselves, they seem to bounce back. Is that common? Because
I mean, you're right. Eventually your brain does get exhausted by it, but you don't always have, some people don't need to hit that bottom, to
Right.
do it. But you're right. Like some people actually, one technique is actually to go to worst case scenario. Like, okay, so things are tough and, I don't know what to do. And then going, you know what, even though this is really tough, I can still cope. And they're not what I want to do. I mean, I'd rather be, people who have lost their jobs, they'd rather be at work. They'd be rather doing productive things, but reminding yourself there has to be a little level of radical acceptance. We can't control a lot of these things,
Right. That's a really interesting point.
I think
About giving up control, right? I mean, we can control so much, but I think some of the problems that we get into is we think that we can give control. And it sounds a lot like, I'm going to get into like a little bit of like an Alcoholic Anonymous type of a thing, but you have to realize that you don't have control and surrender yourself. And it almost sounds like that's something we need to do in our day-to-day lives, that we have to accept what's coming at us when we can control it and try to control the things that we can have an effect over and find the right balance there. Does that sound the right type of strategy?
Yeah, I like that. And people call it acceptance, and I like that word, but I want people to know it doesn't mean that you like what's going on too. Mm-hmm. It's where it is. It's something you have to figure out and then what you can do from moving forward, because when we keep fighting the things we can't control, it makes things worse.
And I think, in the beginning of this, the first thing I did is cut out news. I didn't listen to news for 53 days in a row. And people were like, do you know what's going on? I said, listen, if I need to know what's going on, it's going to bubble up somehow. Somebody will tell me. But I was supposed to make sure I had enough money to feed my family, make sure I had food in the house, and make sure my family was home and we were safe. That was all I can do. There's nothing else I can do. And that helped me. I mean, tremendously helped me. And everybody else was freaking out. I'm like, okay, let's play a board game. Let's go to the beach. Let's whatever. I'll go to the supermarket and buy some steaks. But I completely cut the media out of my life forever.
Very helpful.
53 days for that time. And then I let it back in, and now I'm cutting it out again because it's I just getting through what's going to happen in the next month with the election. I just need to just say when it's over and it's finally done, maybe with the news again. But
that goes to that control issue, right, Anthony? You don't have any control about what's happening out there. We only have control about what's happening here in our personal lives and that's going on in our head. We've got some great questions from the audience, Anthony. How about we ask a couple of those? So, Dr. Berman, is there a correlation between volunteering and helping others in need and relieving anxiety? Great question.
Yeah. So definitely very smart question and correct. Research has for sure supported this idea that helps many people just feel like they're contributing when they can't do something, right? And also get you out of your own head. So brilliant comment and a great thing to do for other people and your own, mental health. So yes,
Right.
correlation, it's a great thing to do.
One of the funny things is we were talking about family members that have a lot of stress. My wife tends to carry a lot of stress and anxiety on her, and I don't feel like I'm betraying her by saying that. But sometimes when she gets a little bit too crazy, I almost feel extra calm, which I think is a weird type of thing. Is that a natural dynamic sometimes with married couples when one person is a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, the other calms down?
It really depends on the marriage. Some people will like really just feed off of that,
Right.
Like the other person's freaking out, I gotta go. Other people go, oh wow, yeah, that sounds kind of cuckoo, because it's that idea of externalizing. It's why therapy can be helpful for some people. Saying it outside, you hear what your wife's saying, and you're like, okay, things aren't that bad. You can center yourself. So yeah, I mean, it just depends on the dynamic of the family.
Yeah, I tend to get really ridiculously calm when people around me are
Right.
like, I get like, even in business, like when things are like out of control, I'm usually the calmest person in the room. When I don't think people are, moving fast enough, then I get out of control. But usually when people are freaking out, it's when it calms me, because I always look at the worst possible scenario. Like we're both freaking out. Now what the hell do I do? And there's nobody to help us, right? It's so this is just a very strange time. But if you look at the world, right, we just got hit with this in our generation. But generations before us, like if we talked about this before, if you were born in 1905, you dealt with the Spanish flu, you dealt with World War I, World War II, the Great Depression. And it just seems that like after this is over, hopefully sooner rather than later, there's going to be something else. If you think about all the people dealing with the fires in California, or the hurricanes, or the hurricane we dealt with here on the East Coast, or the tornadoes, there's always something. And if you don't get what I find yourself in your own routine, I always talk about the 20-second movie in my head. The 20-second movie in my head, because we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else, right? So the 20-second movie in my head could be something that's positive, or it could be a 20-second movie of negativity. And when I was a kid, it was negative. And then as I got older, I learned that 20-second movie in the head, I'm a producer, writer, and director of that movie. And if that movie ain't right, everything around me is just going to get worse. And I think that at least grounds me to help me realize movement is important to me. Eating healthy is important to me, and that movie in my head is important to me. Those three things keep me grounded. And then, of course, the people around me that I love, that keep me grounded. And that's because there are times where I go to the beach and I scream and I yell into the wind just to get that stress out. But it's so personal. And I think from what I see is people try, what's the magic bullet? What's the pill? What's the this? What's the that? And I think, everyone's got to find their own thing.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about basic life stress. We're not talking about real mental illness, right?
Mm-hmm. With this part, correct, exactly. And then I do think it's important, though, that you mention that as well, because people that had pre-existing conditions, whether it was anxiety, depression, substance use, that has shown an uptick in the severity. And also some people also have developed more, people that didn't have previous conditions may have been a little bit more prone to being anxious or depressed. That rate has gone up as well. So that you're right when you bring that up, because that's when you may want someone more kind of specialized involved. You always want to cover those basics. For sure. But having a therapist, psychiatrist, just even going to your primary care doctor, they many times know professionals that they can connect you with if it's becoming something that's just prolonged and it's really hard to push through.
And right now, what's the difference between the men and women, how they're handling it? Is it more, because I know men tend to be, at least me, I tend to be quiet. And like, this is the most I've ever talked about. Like, I've never told anybody I had a panic attack outside of my family. That, like, I tend to be closed off when it comes to my emotions. I handle it myself. Is that typical when it comes to men? I mean, men and women handling this differently?
Oh, yes, for sure. And I think you think about it partly in how it's normalized. Women are, and it's also probably just a little bit how women are more vocal in general, so you definitely see that. You definitely see underdiagnosis of depression in men. And also depression in men looks different than it does in women too. So many times there might be just more irritability, not as much sadness or tears or cries.
Right.
So it's a more internalized sometimes, representation of the different things, but they're still maybe equally sad or depressed. So yeah, it definitely shows different. And even you brought up a really good point earlier. It's really individualized. Everyone's looks different. It's important to address what's bothering them the most.
Excellent. I got a terrific question here from Steve Durasmo. How can I help my team members and direct reports, all virtual right now, with mental health concerns when there's a natural instinct to not share that information with the boss? Right. Because it used to be never share anything private with your company. I feel like those barriers are starting to come down right now. But how do you encourage your team to get you to share?
Well, one is great. What you guys are already doing is self-disclosure, and you don't have to do details of whatever, but just saying, hey, I'm having a hard time at home.
Right.
My partner and I are just more on edge because we're stuck together. First, self-disclosing a little bit, if you feel comfortable, is a great way to start the conversation, honestly. Right. Having a resource. So I know even here at the NIMH, we have people that staff kind of, a hotline. So referring people to hotlines, or again, our own institute has it for individuals that are working at the NIH who may be feeling stressed, and they can still privately talk with someone who can guide them through the next step. So, putting out those resources.
So let me ask you, if I ran a hotel right now, one of the things I would suggest to my team, to my executives, would be, I want to take every employee that's at home or any employee period that works with us, and I want to hire a service. Okay. And I don't want them to have the number. I want them to make appointments. We make appointments for them. Thursday, 8 o'clock is your appointment. Thursday, 9 o'clock is your appointment. Thursday. Now, if you don't show up, there is absolutely no penalty, but there is an appointment for you that's free of charge. You have to do nothing, but go on a Zoom or answer the phone. That's all you have to do. I mean, and again, you don't do it, no harm, no foul. We're going to do it every week. We're going to have it there for you. And if you don't want to show up, you don't show up. If I have to pay the bill, I pay the bill. But I think that is the way I would do it, because I know if somebody said, here's a number for me, I ain't calling. I'm not calling. I'm just not. If somebody said there's an appointment and we'd like you to show up if you feel inclined, I might show up. I may not. Knowing my personality, I still may not. But it's there for me, and it's made easy. Kind of like volunteering, right? People say, if you tell me how to volunteer, I'll volunteer. Most people don't volunteer because they don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And also that removes one of the big barriers for treatment is exactly what you're talking about, is that step. It's really hard for people to make that first step, whether it's that call, whether that's reaching out. And I do think it's kind of, the natural kind of benefit of kind of being online is you can do these conferences via Zoom. And I have plenty of people that show up to me without a camera on, setting them up and just having that time of selected is a great idea.
So doctor, there's all these new services that have popped up in the last 6 months, a year, where you can use an app to get access to a therapist instead of having to go to an office. Is that something that you would recommend for people that are interested in getting some additional help but don't want to go necessarily into an office?
Yeah, I think that's a great option. And then I also work with a lot of young adults in their 20s, and they text. That's what they do.
Right.
So there's text lines as well. It's just kind of however the preferred means of communication.
So they'll literally have therapy through text.
That's incredible.
That is incredible. Michael Phelps, right, the swimmer, he is doing a commercial for mental health and for these virtual,
for one of those services, right?
Right, absolutely. But the barrier, suicide is up because those people didn't get the help, didn't ask for the help. Maybe they have mental illness outside of the situational. Because that's another thing I want to talk about. There's situational depression. Again, I'm going to make believe I know what the hell I'm talking about. But the situation,
he does it every day, so don't worry about it.
I'm just a moron. So situational depression and anxiety, as opposed to real depression, not real depression, but depression, clinical, that you've grown up with, that you suffer from. What's the difference?
Yes. So when you hit clinical depression, so there's kind of a stress. There's different things. Clinical depression is something that happens. It's really time based. So you're seeing sadness, lowness, and then it's pervading your life. So difficulty with sleeping, difficulty eating. And it's not just like, okay, it's happening 2 days in a row. Okay, so let's say, something happens, you find out you're getting laid off, you have it for 4 days, 5 days in a row. But you're feeling better by the weekend, and you start to feel, some pleasure with hanging out with your friends, or at least talking to them or whatever. That's more situational. It's when it goes on for a couple weeks and longer. So 2 weeks of a kind of large amount of symptoms that don't remit. So it's not getting better as the day goes on, and you're really, then it's starting to impact either relationships. So you're not communicating with your friends or family as much, or your family, like your friends, or your job, right? So you want to see interference, really.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I found helpful is first thing in the morning, like say if I don't have meetings or I don't have someplace to be, and I always make something, whether it be working out or even taking a drive. I always try to have to wake up for something really early, so I get out of bed early. I'm usually an early riser anyway. But it was for a couple of weeks where I just didn't feel like working out. I just went to the beach, and every day I made an appointment. 7 o'clock I was on the beach. I've yet to see the sunrise because I set my alarm, and then it's too early. But
well, the good news is, Anthony, the days are getting shorter now, so you can stay in bed at the same time.
So I do think it's important to, again, for me, important to have. I don't like scheduling. I don't like being overscheduled. I don't like 37 things on my schedule. But what I like to start my day, and then look at my schedule and say, okay, there's 7 things. But I won't look at my schedule until I wake up and say, okay, I have 7 things today. Great. But if I don't have one thing and I know I can sleep until like the podcast or whatever, I can't do that, because that will just put me in a place that is not a fun place to be. I have to get out of bed really early in the morning. I mean, that would be advice to anybody, to me, that's suffering situational anxiety or depression. Just get yourself out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Well, and that's hard, though, with people not having routines. People talk about also that ritual time, whether they're driving, whether they were on the metro to get to work. They've lost that kind of headspace time to get you in a good, vibe. So ultimately, you're right. Wake up a little earlier so you can pretend, you're driving and listening to that song or that podcast or whatever to get yourself in that space, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Anthony, you remember in like March and April when we would have guests on, that was one of the things that they were saying. I got to get up every morning and take a shower and act as if, and get dressed and kind of go about it.
I went from wearing my sweatshirt, then I wore a collared shirt, then I wore a suit without a tie, and now I'm back to what I usually wear. And I was like, I have to get back to who I am. I don't shave every day, but it's today's a busy day for me. So I'm going to be on a lot of different calls and Zoom. And so it helps me. It just helps me do that. And I think people have got to, like you said, people got to understand it's temporary, but something else is coming. Then something else is coming. Then something else is coming. So you have to be ready for that race. You have to be ready. You're going to have a lull. You're going to sit on the bench, but then your name's going to be called. You're going to be dealing with something fantastic, or you're going to be dealing with something tragic. And there's always coming up. And so I think people are looking at this. I can't wait till this is over. Of course, everybody can't wait till it's over. But after this, then what? Then what?
Right.
Then what? Then what? I mean, I'm 55 years old. There's been a lot of ups and downs. And so you've got to have I think you've just got to think in the situation of just be happy in the moment and just go from moment to moment.
Yeah, I would also add that I think we need to figure out how to be more self-aware and to really understand what's going on internally, to understand what is part of your normal way of behaving and what is part of something that's more onerous, more of that sense of anxiety and dread and depression. I know my body chemistry is I feel things very hard, but I also feel them for a very short period of time and I could bounce back. So I'm fully aware, based on my internal psychology, that if something goes on too long, then I really need to take positive action in order to get past that sense of depression. But combine that with also, doctor, I think that in American society in particular, we're being told that we're supposed to be happy all the time. And I think that that's not even a possibility. Happiness is a fleeting moment. You should be glad to have it when you can get it. But our natural things should be more neutral, I think, right? And not get so concerned if we're not happy all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of what we brought up about feeling bad about having a panic attack, that meta psychology, worrying about worrying or feeling bad about not being happy, right? But you bring up the really good thing that I try to work on when I work on people's thoughts is, it's not totally about super positive thinking, right? Because sometimes a situation can't be spun in a positive manner. And it's not about negative. I think I always tell people at the best, can you at least get neutral? Because most things, that's the other end. Yes, this is a very kind of, stressful time, but most things are up and down, change is inevitable, but most things are also neutral. Like, so if you can get neutral, then that's at least a good place to be than always having to kind of drive and look for that positive if it's not there.
And I think you just said something that really hits our business, right? When you said, it's either good or it's bad, or most of the time it's just, So what do people look forward to? They look forward to going away on vacation. And 97% of the people polled in the poll that happened last week said they are happier when they have something scheduled. Yeah. I just went through a period of 7 months without a ticket in my name. 10 years, there's always been a ticket in my name going somewhere for business or vacation. And for 7 months, there wasn't. And Glenn will tell you, for about a good month, I was just like, dude, if I don't get on the plane soon, if you don't make me get on the plane. So it helped me. I went away last week for business in Vegas, and it helped me. It was safe, and I did all the right things, and I got 2 COVID tests, and I'm negative. But I had all this anxiety, not a lot, but I was just like, I'm going to get on a plane. I got to make sure I'm safe, bring my N95. But when I got back, I was just like, that. I don't remember the mask. I don't remember the plexiglass.
Right.
I don't remember the counter with the person behind the counter with plexiglass. I don't remember it. I remember the beautiful dinner I had. I remember a gentleman, because I beat him, threw a poker chip at me. I remember having a couple glasses of scotch, too many, at a poker table. I remember the beautiful room. But I don't remember that there was a pandemic, because I was safe, but I was also traveling. I think it is critical that this winter, if you're a skier, go skiing. If you like walking, on the beach in the cold, put on a jacket and go. I think it is absolutely critical for people to travel. And I'm not saying that because I'm in the travel business. I'm saying that because I think it is 97% of people are happier when they have something to look forward to.
Yeah. Right. And I mean, that's a great, easy, kind of thing. And it can be whatever to look forward to. They may just, I literally had one person I was talking to, they're like, I went on the metro. I did it safe. I had a mask and, hand sanitizer. And they're like, that just felt so good to go down on the metro. Like, it just made it feel they had something to look forward to, go get their coffee at their favorite coffee shop, wherever it is to travel and to kind of patronize.
What's that flight to nowhere? What's that flight to nowhere where it booked
in
up?
Singapore? And they got one in Australia too. It's just you go up, you fly around for a while, they serve you a meal, and then you come back down. People are so into doing that right now. For me, in our family, the way we motivate each other is through food. So if everybody does everything they have to do, then we get the sushi lunch special on Friday, and that works as a real good motivating factor. Now, I've got an interesting question here. For people who are still working and feeling burned out and overwhelmed, and I'll tell you, I am one of those people big time. And if they feel they can't find time to address their mental health because they're so busy, what can they do? I mean, I make that excuse to myself when it comes to exercise. I'm too busy. People are making that same excuse with mental health. What can we do?
Yeah, so I think, again, it's got to be even bringing up what to look forward to. So it doesn't have to be a deep meditation, 10-minute time. It's little things throughout the day. If you don't have a lot of time, I've even noticed that I could literally sit on my phone and my Zoom calls all day long, getting out, taking a walk, coming back, like I said, going down, getting that special cup of coffee. You can probably make 5 minutes here or there. It's not going to feel the same. So try not to compare what used to make you kind of in a more energized or to address the mental health issue. And just talking to a family member or a coworker,
I also think it's important because people say to me all the time, oh, you're so busy, I didn't want to bother you. Oh, you're so busy, we didn't call you. Oh, you're so busy. For some reason, because I live somewhat of a public life, people think I'm always so busy.
That's right.
I am busy, but I'm no busier than you, and I'm no busier than Glenn, right? So I work, like, if you look at my schedule, I am sure your schedule is just as busy, if not busier than mine. So regardless of how busy I am selfish for me. So I will not take a call at 8 o'clock in the morning. I will not put that on my schedule. I will not take one at 9 o'clock. I usually don't take one until 10. And even then, I'll usually wait till 10:30. I will usually not take a call. I took one last night at 5:30, but I usually won't take a call after 5 o'clock. I will not organize anything on weekends. Now I work all weekend, but I again, not all weekend, but I'm dealing with emails and whatever, but I am controlling that.
Mhm.
I don't like when people are controlling my time that I can really use for something else. So I am very selfish when it comes to people putting stuff on my calendar and me doing things just because it keeps me busy. And so again, getting back to what we talked about, exercise, I'm selfish about that because I know I will be absolutely miserable. Before this, walking through an airport, getting on a plane, having meetings, keynote speeches, I was so busy. So if I didn't work out, more than once a week, it wasn't that important to me. Okay. I ate healthy and stuff, but it wasn't as critical. Right now, that's critical. If I give somebody that time, I'm going to destroy everything because I'm going to be irritable. And I think it's just so important for people to understand it's okay to be selfish with the things you need. Because you can't.
But that makes you a better person to help others by taking care of yourself first, right?
So, Doc, do you find that in your practice that people just don't give themselves enough time and energy?
I think that's brilliant. And like you even brought up, it really alludes to this concept of boundaries, which have kind of disappeared given the pandemic. And when a lot of people are working from home and wearing many hats, you can't, help your kid, learn well and manage your work and take care of yourself if you don't try and figure out and prioritize your own health and your own mental health.
Right. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I can't do that right now. I remember for years, everybody wants my schedule. In the beginning, the producers wanted it, then my assistant, and nobody gets my schedule ever. No one's ever been given, because a lot of times I put on there stuff that is like, it's work. It's not work. It's just that's my mental health time. That's just where I'm going to sit and just stare at the sky. I tried something the other day. Somebody, I was looking I don't know, I had advertisement on social media. So somebody something that one of those things, Calm. Is it right? I tried it. It made me more anxious. I was like, I don't want any of that. When I want to be calm, I need to move. I don't want to sit still outside if I'm having lunch or something. Even when I was working as a younger manager, if I worked 30 hours a day, 18 days a week, I never ever ate lunch in the building. When people say as general managers, eat with the team, I didn't. I was like, I have 1 hour. And I will be in a restaurant, usually by myself in a corner. Nice. That was my time. And like people sometimes criticize me for it because I'm supposed to be in the cafeteria. I'm like, dude, I give you 17 hours a day. I'm killing myself. No, I don't need to show my employees by sitting in cafeteria I'm part of the team. They know I'm part of the team. I never did it. Even at the Plaza when I was a younger manager, I was supposed to eat in the cafeteria. I just ate outside. I think you just need to see you have, like you said, boundaries. Talk about that. How hard is it for, especially, like, it seems men are better at it than women. I see that women want it, they're caregivers, right? Yeah. And they just want everybody to be taken care of. And again, I am a little bit more selfish where I will take care of myself, although I am a caregiver for my children. I take care of my kids. So talk about that. Like, how do you get people to realize that they have to take care of themselves?
Yeah. I mean, you bring up, it's a natural inclination a lot of times, and just kind of it's the way things are built that, a lot of times the mom figure takes on more of the responsibilities of the child care, taking them to the doctors, etc. What I really want to highlight that you bring up something really important is saying no. And then not feeling bad about it would be the better part, but at least just trying to say no is really important. A lot of women, that's very hard for. A lot of moms, it's very hard for. That makes them feel selfish, but it's back to you taking care of yourself. And even more importantly, a lot of people with anxiety don't like to say no because they don't want to either displease their boss or make someone angry or ruffle any feathers. And it's very important. I love that you shared that, because in your industry, saying no, it was a little bit out of the norm in terms of eating, but it was really helpful for you and you're still very successful. So I think it's just really nice to hear that, so people will maybe think, okay, I can say no.
And one of the things is when people do say no, whether it be an employee say, I can't get that report until then, is that acceptable? So to make it like I would never just say no out of hand. I'd be like, I cannot do it at 9 o'clock. I'm busy. although maybe I'm just working out, but I can do it Tuesday at 4:00.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great example. Mhm.
right. Like, and I think, and I know when there's people that are not overly aggressive, when people are aggressive with me and saying, Anthony, I cannot do that. And this is why. I like that, because that means if I give that person a task, they're going to get it done, because they're okay with saying no. They're okay with being forceful. And that's something, if you are a person that just wants to please people, like, start doing that. And you will see, if you do it politely and respectfully, you will sense a power that you didn't know you maybe never felt in your life. I remember when I started doing it as a boss, as a manager, when I started pushing back, like, I felt empowered.
Wow.
And I never really got in trouble for it, outside of once or twice.
So I've got another really, really great question here. When I identify someone in my life that's dealing with depression, how do I show up for them, help them? It can feel very helpless. And I think personally, my opinion is natural human inclination is to try to pull back from those people and avoid something that could be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're right. You want to kind of go towards the things that are uncomfortable. You also want to read the person. If it's someone in your life, you kind of know, are they open to talking about feelings? And again, the best thing is always to ask an open-ended question, right? To say, are you feeling sad or angry? People can say, no, I'm fine. But like, what have you been up to? How are you? Are you, doing X, Y, Z, the things that are helpful for you? So, we brought up lots of things that are helpful for someone to have in their life. So asking just open-ended questions, how they feel. The other thing, well, two other things. One, just find that you can almost kind of, okay, they're not getting out of the house, or they're not eating that lunch. Maybe you can, think about, okay, maybe they don't want to talk to me about it, but I can get them out for lunch, or I can get them out for that walk, or I can text them every day. Hey, what's up? Because that's the one thing. Depressed people a lot of times retreat, and they're not going to reach out to you. And the third thing is realize that, it's not totally, your thing to solve. Some people like to solve things, and it's really you be there the way they need you to be there.
Yeah, that's interesting. As a parent of 3 girls, I learned something probably about 5-6 years ago, is walk away, count to 10, put my headphones on, listen to a song, come back, and the thing they were worried about that you wanted to fix, they forgot about. Because as I want to fix everything. It's what I've done my entire career. You give me a hotel, I fix it. Period. End of story. I'm a caveman. I fix. That's it. And so I have an overwhelming need to fix every problem that my kids have. And I've learned it's like that does nothing, but doesn't solve problems if I'm fixing it for them. And that's been really difficult for me. It's been better the last 5 years, but for a long time, it was a difficult thing. And do people? I would imagine a lot of people deal with that they want to just fix everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I love though is it's even just a skill in itself. What you talked about. See what's going on. Give it some space. Just give it even 5 minutes. You don't want to jump into a fire. That's really the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, I learned that.
2 minutes, calm down, then go back and check. If it's still an issue, then maybe you would help in that moment. But if it's not, great. You didn't kind of fan the flames, so.
Right. Yeah. Something happened the other day and I was just like, I'll be over there if you need me.
One of the other things that I've noticed that really is depressing is with the suicide rates going up. I've seen people that have been through that. They've lost friends or loved ones to suicide, and a lot of them feel an incredible amount of guilt and responsibility where they probably shouldn't. How can those people better cope with a situation like that if they feel they just didn't do enough?
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's back to that old saying, that hindsight is 20/20. We
Right.
See and predict. And if we could, we would have. We're all there for the individuals that are there in our lives. And it just was something that was not predictable. So really important working on feelings of guilt. And guilt is, kind of like we were talking about a meta level. You may be feeling sad about feeling sad or bad about what happened. And so work on your own mental health or your own stuff first, and then look back. But realizing that, mental illness is a bona fide mental health problem and a worldwide health problem. And there are some Just like sometimes there are people who have cancer that we cannot treat. There are some individuals with depression that just for some reason we're not quite there yet at addressing everyone's needs. So, it's losing that. It's not the own it. Watch how you're owning, other things that sometimes we can't control.
Right. I think that's a great point for you to put out there, doctor, is that it is a disease. And as far as we can't help our friend or family member's cancer, sometimes we can't do anything with mental illness. Just because it doesn't express itself like a disease doesn't mean that it's any different than a disease.
Right, yeah, and I think, again, we all, for the example of, if you have cancer, you try to get rid of cancer. But if you have mental health issues, people are embarrassed by them, and people, it's difficult. Do you see that people are less embarrassed, and because of this pandemic, because it's really kind of out in the open and everybody's dealing with it, do you see that more people are coming to therapy?
Well, by even what you're doing today is terribly important. By normalizing it, having more of a conversation is taking the stigma away, which still creates such a barrier for many individuals. There's many barriers to service for mental health issues, but just by having open discussions, that can really help people. And I think it has, because COVID has put a spotlight on that this is touching everyone, and that we need to kind of understand that depression, anxiety are real things that have to be addressed so we can be there for our kids or be productive in a job.
I saw a commercial. I don't know who was sponsored by. It said, there is no normal. And it's like, I just want to be normal. I don't know one person that's normal. Like everybody is different. And some people are quiet. Some people are loud. Some people are funny. Some people aren't. Some people like being by themselves. But I've never met a normal person. I met a normal cat.
Yeah, I told you that occasionally she shows up.
I've never met a normal person. And I think that's what's got to be kind of demystified, is there is no normal. It's everybody's got their own thing. It's like, if somebody looks at my calendar or my schedule or my career, they were like, dude, you're crazy. No, I'm not crazy. I'm as normal as could be in my normal. But you put me in your normal. No, that's abnormal for me, and so and I think that is incredibly, when I saw that commercial, I was just like, you're right. There is no normal.
Yeah.
And do you find that where people are afraid if they go to a therapist, they're going to be, deemed crazy?
Right, exactly. And it may just be that I like to think of it as something's interfering in your life, whether it's a disease like depression that's interfering and you can't do your job, or it's a stressor. And that person, that therapist or psychiatrist is there to help you. We don't do rocket science as therapists, but we're kind of an objective thing that can listen and say, have you thought about these 10 other things that might be more helpful, And
that's important, because I would imagine when people go to you, it's like, fix me.
Yes.
Right. And what do you do when somebody's like, this isn't working? You're like, you're not fixing me.
Yeah, I think that's great. So as I always say with anxiety, and I think we talked about this like an hour ago in the very beginning, which is so important. Like, you can't remove anxiety. We don't want to remove all our anxiety. We wouldn't get up in the morning and do certain things, and we need to have some level of it. I'm going to teach you to manage your symptoms. And, if you're asking me to remove your anxiety, you're definitely coming to the wrong person. So you're right. Fix it. Be done with it. It's kind of black and white thinking, and it's more our management. You're right. So I wish I could remove it from people. But then who knows what the world would look like if no one had anxiety. So.
Right. I actually find that the anxiety pushes me forward. It just exactly what you said. It gets me out of bed, makes me work a little bit harder, makes me do those one or two things every day.
I think the most important thing is self-discipline. And self-discipline doesn't have to be, again, doing 1,000 push-ups or eating, 900 calories, or it's just, I'm going to do things that make me happy as often as I can do them. Like today, I'm going to get vegan ice cream. I said I wouldn't do it this week because I was doing it every day. But guess what?
Right.
I want vegan ice cream today, so I'm going to get it. And it just makes me happy. That one little moment in my busy day is going to make me happy. And I think that the discipline doesn't mean just regimented things that are tough to do. The discipline of giving yourself the freedom to book a vacation, giving yourself the freedom to have that ice cream. It's like, that's discipline too, because I can walk away from that ice cream, and how's that going to manifest itself later in the day? I might be upset. was like, shit, I should have my ice cream.
Right.
Right. So I think everything in moderation, including moderation and discipline, is the most important thing I found. I've learned it in the military. I learned it growing up with my mother. It's discipline has kept me kind of going in the right direction. Is when we take that out of our lives is when I think we fall into a situation. And I think especially now, because the discipline of getting up early, getting coffee, getting on that train, walking the 7 blocks, having to say good morning to people, having to be polite, and now we can just get up and be whoever the hell we want. And you still got to have that control and that discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I will say, Anthony, you're right on target. Everything in moderation, including moderation, is the way that I live my life. It's how I've been teaching my kids since they understood English to live their lives. Because I think that if we do too much, we tend to lose our way, but allow ourselves to have that. Don't deny ourselves. That's why I can't stand the idea of diets and stuff like that, because it's all based on depriving ourselves. If we allow ourselves to do things moderately and have some fun every once in a while, that's a little beyond moderation, then I think it all works itself out. I know we're just about out of time. So last question for you. Yesterday, we were talking about vitamins and supplements, and Craig over at the California Lodging Investment Conference says, hey, any suggestions for vitamins and supplements?
Well, I mean, I think, we do know that eating healthy and making sure that you're kind of getting and addressing all those, vitamin needs is terribly important. If we're deficient on any of them, then we're not functioning fully. I don't have any exact supplements. So, but I think going to a primary care or other kind of places, nutritionists are very, very helpful things,
Yeah.
All right. So, Erin, we've got a new business for you to start.
Exactly.
Can I just mention one thing before we go? Social media is playing, I think, a critical role in depression, in anxiety, to levels that we've never seen. This is the most abnormal our world has ever been, because of, not because of COVID and not because of who's in the White House or who's in the governor's office or who's in the mayor's office. It's simply because we're feeding. When we played baseball, my friend went home, I didn't know what he did. Okay, until I saw him again in school or when we played baseball again. I didn't know where all my friends were. I didn't care where they were. I went home. Okay, now everybody knows what everybody else is doing. I do not get involved in Twitter. I post, but I don't read my comments. Very rarely do I read comments even on Facebook and Instagram. Like, I'll read real quick because I want to make sure, if somebody's trying to sell something, I'll delete it or whatever. Or the real negative comment, I'll delete it, or have somebody on my team delete it. But I don't get involved. Like, I certainly don't react to it. Like, I won't say, like, if somebody says something about me, I won't say you're an idiot. Like, I don't like that. To me is a self-discipline that people have got to learn. Like, just don't react. If you're a Democrat, right? Why would you respond to a Republican that's just trying to piss you off? If you're a Republican, why would you respond to a Democrat trying to piss you off? If you go to a friend's house who's a Republican and you're a Democrat, or vice versa, and you have a glass of wine, I guarantee you guys aren't throwing wine at each other and cursing each other out at the end of the night. You have a healthy conversation that maybe you disagree with, and then you still walk away friends. But when you do it on social media, you cannot win that. I always said, even before a lot of social media, I'm not a telephone tough guy. I'm not an email tough guy. I'm going to show up and I'm going to look you in the eye and say, I got a problem with you and this is why. And I think, or I want to discuss that further. And I think that is, to me, what is really a big part of what's happening with depression and anxiety, that people are trying to be fulfilled by friends that aren't their friends. What do you think about that? I'm sure you're doing a lot of study and there's a lot to that.
Yeah, and I know there's more data coming out. They're looking at it in the obviously adolescent population and how that's going more than adults, honestly. But we are seeing that obviously the rates of depression and anxiety have increased, and that if you kind of have any pre-existing inclination, some of these, whether it's Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, can inflame those feelings. So, again, not that we should have this whole theme of kind of very simple thing, but boundaries and not getting too deep into social media. I think even one study said, as long as you like one social media is okay for adolescents, the more you have, kind of the more, sad you can get.
But I think you said like basic things, and you kept on going back. Well, it's kind of basic. Same thing like when I was doing Show Hotel Impossible. It's like, I don't want to talk about cleaning toilet bowls and good service and cleanliness, but those are the basics. And if you're not doing that, everything else falls apart. So what you're saying saying is boundaries isn't a simple thing, and it isn't a thing that is important. Boundaries is everything. Okay. You have to have boundaries for yourself. Once you do that, then everything else can fall in place. But if you do not have boundaries for yourself, it's like having a dirty hotel room. No one's coming back. If you don't have boundaries, people will just keep taking advantage of you. And you are in control of you. And that to me, when I've run teams or whatever, it's like everybody's got to have a boundary. I want to know what your boundaries are. I want to know, do you need to be out of here 5 o'clock on Friday because you're the captain of your kid's baseball team? Great. That's your boundary. I may have to have you work on the weekend to get a report done, but if you need to be out of here Friday 5 o'clock, I don't want that to be an anxiety. You know, and I think it is so important to set those boundaries with your boss, with everybody around you, and when people are taking care of older people with their parents. I've seen that where like they feel completely guilty. It's like, dude, you still have to set boundaries. I've had that conversation several times.
So Erin, let's wrap this up. Any final thoughts that you'd like to send our audience off with?
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I'm really feeling, very positive that you can have a discussion about mental health and just normalizing it, realizing you're not alone if you're struggling with anything right now, and reaching out for help in any way that matches with you is really important.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Doctor. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you. And before we wrap up, Kimberly, yes, thank you. I love the background too. You can thank your front desk manager, Jennifer Keenan, for sending in the picture here.
Go to one shot and get out of the way so we can see it. Look at that beautiful hotel.
The other day, someone said I should do that stare thing.
You know what I love? You know what I love? I love when people take buildings and do something new with them. Like right now, a lot of shopping malls are going away, right? Yep. So there are high schools, there's colleges, there's elementary schools, there's technology companies taking over those malls. I love the fact that was a shoe factory. Somebody with some creativity came in and said, you know what, we're going to make this a hotel, but we're still going to pay tribute to the shoe factory. And I love that. It's like, it's like a person that reinvents themselves. They were maybe a postal worker and then they decide to be, I don't know, a stand-up comedian. Like that hotel went from being a manufacturing company to being a place of hospitality. And I just love that.
Adaptive reuse buildings are the coolest hotels that are out there. It gives you a great slate in order to build something upon. I love that. And we were talking about social media, man. It really makes me yearn for the days when it was just like pictures of food and people telling you that they were going to pick up their kids.
And this is what drives me nuts is I use social media very specifically for my business and for my leisure, which is almost, I don't usually use it for my leisure outside of podcasting or whatever. But it's you can have just pictures of food. You can just get away from the noise.
That's right.
And I think it's just so like when people want to debate me or say they didn't like something. I'll give you an example. I don't know if I said this last week. I posted something about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a Supreme Court justice. I've done a lot of studying and reading about her because she's a fellow Brooklynite. I have a lot of respect for her, what she did for women's rights, what she did. She started really her career helping someone in the Air Force, a woman. It was just, I was always fascinated by her career because she went to Madison High School, and I used to actually wrestle the wrestling team at Madison High School. I had girlfriends that went at Madison High School. So when she passed away, I simply posted something. I never lost more followers after that post. Wow. I lost like thousands of followers on that post simply because I posted about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And now all of a sudden I'm making a political statement. And I was just like, thank God they unfollowed me, because if you're so shallow that you would look at one post and all of a sudden you got my political background, that's insane.
Well, I also think that goes to what media and social media has done to divide us in a lot of ways. So hopefully everyone will realize that getting rid of some of that will add more zen to your life, which has really been about this whole conversation, right?
You think Ruth Bader Ginsburg was such a terrible person? Unfollow me. I just found
that's right.
her life to be a fascinating life, and having 3 daughters, she helped women. I love that Viceroy's coming out with that hotel in Washington. I can't wait to get down there, and they're going to honor women that have moved women forward, and I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And so you make one comment, and not even a comment, just a posting, and then people unfollow you, and I'm like, that's why I don't get involved. You know,
Yep.
I just don't get involved.
All right. So we would like you guys to get involved. Be sure you subscribe to our newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. And of course, you guys subscribe to our audio podcast versions. Get those. Great for when you're walking the dog, on that commute, doing that exercise, all of those important things. Anthony, how can we learn more about hospitality success?
Well, Hospitality Success, Thursday, 3:00 on Facebook Live. We break down Hotel Impossible, and we'll show you. I'm going to actually introduce our handbook, which is exciting. We're going through it now and doing some edits. And so all our clients get this several hundred-page handbook that really from checklists to just how you handle situations. And we add to it all the time. We're adding to it on a weekly basis. So thank you very much. And I like that shoe sticking out of your head, my friend.
I know. All right, everybody, send in a picture. Glenn at rouse.media, ROUSE.media. That's how you're going to find me. Glenn's got 2 N's. I'd love to see some pictures. Yeah.
Do me a favor. I'm gonna send in a picture of the Rockaway Hotel that David's going to send you. David, send him a great picture of Rockaway Hotel. We'll put that up tomorrow.
Yep, sounds good. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We'll be back here tomorrow at 12 with another great show. And as always, remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
I think that means more than anything today, right, guys? See you tomorrow.